Hi, I'm Mark Munoz, the Filipino Wrecking Machine. I just got done with Mike G in the morning. I just want to let you guys in on a few things that I'm involved in. You can go to the wrestlingroom.com. You can learn about wrestling for jiu-jitsu, wrestling for MMA, and then wrestling for folks on freestyle wrestling. You can also go to my camps. If you're not in the area, you can be a resident camper. You can sleep overnight at the camp. You can also be a commuter if you live close. You can look it up at westcoastwrestler.com. Also, if you're in the Orange County area and you want your child to be involved in our wrestling club, you can go to traintoreign.com, and you can follow me on all my socials at Mark_Munoz on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Appreciate all the support over the years. Thank you for following me, and os.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Welcome to a special edition of the program from Orange County, California. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G, and you're participating in Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. We have a very special guest with us in studio today. We've got Mark, the Filipino Wrecking Machine, Munoz. Mark was a wrestler in high school, capturing the California state title, wrestled in college for the Oklahoma State University Cowboys, two-time Division I All-American and national champion. He had a storied career in the UFC and is here to tell us all about it. Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it.
You know, Mark, when you were on that run in the UFC and you had that win streak, Simpson, CB Dollaway, Damian Maya, Chris Lieben. I was watching you, and at that point, I'm an undergrad at Oklahoma Baptist and the beginning of Tulsa College of Law, and I'm thinking, this guy is going to be the champion.
Oh, man.
What was that like?
You know, it was that run was amazing. And, you know, for me, like, I just took it fight per fight. You know, I didn't look past the fighter or anything, but I basically just took it fight per fight. And that was a time where I owned my own gym. I taught and I coached there, and I had the world's best fighters coming to my gym called Rain Training Center. And I was training to be an elite mixed martial artist and have a wife and 4 kids. So it's like, life was just flying by. You know, it was hectic, but it was a great time. It was a really good time, and you know, I was blessed to be able to do what I've done, and you know, God's been good.
You were really amazing during that time period. Was there any point when you were there that you realized how amazing it was?
Yeah, you know, just being able to do what you love and love what you do and get paid for it. I mean, that's just amazing, right? But at the same time, you know, to be able to step inside the octagon and compete, and you know, trust me, I never thought in a million years I'd ever punch and kick people in the face for a living. Never thought I'd do that, but you know, and I'll tell you the story how I got into it, but you know, people believed in me, and I pretty much got into it, and not even knowing how big I would get, you know, but just taking it day by day, and you know, I was one of the top fighters in the world.
Do you think about it differently today? Because when I was talking to Benny Dariush last week, he was saying that he tries not to think about it right now.
Yep.
Because he feels his career is incomplete. He doesn't want to take attention away from the ultimate goal.
Yep.
Do you look at your career differently today than you did back then?
Yeah. You know, when I was actually going through it, I didn't even think about, you know, rankings or anything like that. I just, you know, studied and, you know, just trained and pretty much just really dove into the martial arts, you know, really dove into like what I needed to do to win. And I did strength conditioning. I did my, you know, my cardio, you know, and I did my mitt work, pad work, and then I did my MMA training. It was just that was my training sessions all day, every day, you know. On top of that, I was teaching and coaching at my at my gym called Rain Training Center, and helping out over at King's MMA as well. And Benny was one of the fighters there, and I was helping Benny out as well. And for me, it was about putting it, using your talents, gifts, and abilities to be able to impact other people, and impart the knowledge and wisdom that you have and garnered over the years, and be able to give it to people, and so I've been able to do that, and I'm still doing it till this day.
So after that streak, you fight Weidman.
Yep.
Future champion.
Yep.
And you had some run of guys there. Yep. You had really amazing competition during that time period.
Yep.
But you run into a Weidman, it doesn't go your way, and you end up out of the sport for a year.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I end up, going on a really good streak of wins, before I fought Weidman. And, I got hurt. I didn't train for a long time. And then they said, hey, you need to, not you need to, but we have a fight for you. And this is going to be for number one contender, and you'll be able to fight for the title. And I was training with Anderson, who was the champion. And I was getting to that point where I was like, oh man, I might fight Anderson, and so somebody had asked me, hey, would you fight Anderson? And I go, well, I grew up in wrestling, and, he's the champion, and, I would love nothing more to be the champion as well. So yeah, I guess. And from then on, it was like Anderson didn't take to that too kindly.
Really?
Yeah. And we haven't talked since. So I'm just so bummed about that. And I wish I could talk to him. I wish I could, and I know their culture, and they would never, ever think about competing against their loved ones, and I understand that. And I wish I could just talk to him about, hey, I'm sorry. I said that. I should have consulted you first. If we didn't fight, then great. And we didn't fight, but I feel so bad about that now, because it truly hurt his feelings, and the whole Black House crew, so, it was just, it was a bad thing. And I actually fought Lyoto. Lyoto is a really good friend of mine. We fought Lyoto, and we went out to dinner together, and so, but for Anderson, it was a big deal, so I just, again, I just feel really bad about that. And Anderson, I am sorry if you're listening to this. I wish I could, reconcile our relationship somehow. I would love to, just hang out, talk with you, and like we did in the past. So
if he's over there on the couch hanging out with Uncle Chael making commercials, you would think that he could let bygones be bygones with this one, no?
Yeah.
What is it culturally? Is it because it's fighting? Because it seems that this is a competition. It should be no different than if you're playing soccer against one another, no?
Yeah, I think it's a more kind of more I guess it's more, I wouldn't say intimate, but it's fighting. There's a chance that we can get hurt, and I believe it's culture as well. But yeah, I didn't understand it at first, and so I was naive to that, and I didn't understand, that he would get that hurt about it, so, but yeah, I tried to explain it to Ed Soares, he was manager at that time, and and he goes, yeah, man, I understand. But I was like, gosh, dude, I just, I'm sorry I even said that, I wish I could take it back, but I can't. Yeah.
So during this period, this is before you fought Weidman?
Yeah, this is before I fought Weidman.
Okay.
So I actually accepted the fight against Weidman on kind of short notice. I mean, it was like 5 weeks, and I was 230, cut down to 185. I was big.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I accepted that fight on late notice, and I cut all that weight.
And you were injured going into that fight?
Yeah, I kicked somebody's elbow, and I broke my fifth metatarsal on my pinky toe. And so on my right foot, and so that's the foot I push off of. So yeah, nobody knew about that, but I just taped it up, and I didn't know about it. I just like, oh, my foot's kind of hurting, I just taped it up. And then I was in the back with my foot taped, and the commission comes in and says, hey, you can't tape your foot like that. I go, oh man, so, oh dude, it's gonna hurt, so I try not to think about it. But anyways, after the fight, come to find out my fifth metatarsal is broken,
And then you have the long layoff after that, right?
Yeah, so it took time to heal. Of course, I got knocked out. He elbowed me as I was coming in for an overhand right. He caught me with an elbow and knocked me out with it. So, and then, I just was in a boot for a good, 10 to 11 months, and had to do some recovery after that. And then,
10 or 11 months?
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
because I totally fractured it, and then they had to reset it, so I have a pin in there, and then I had rehab and stuff like that. So it took me a long time to come back.
And what are you doing during this point where you have the boot on for 10 or 11 months?
Oh man, I was so distraught. I was like, gosh, man, this stinks. I was like, I went to food, food for comfort, and and I'm naturally big already, but, with me training all the time, I was floating around about 220, 215, cutting down to 185.
Which is still big walking
It's
around.
still big, and a lot of people, and I had a lot of heavyweights coming in and out of my gym, and so, and that's where I would, walk around at. And so it was a big cut for me. And then a lot of times, I end up, training with Todd Norman over at Cutting Edge Sports Training. He actually helped me out a lot with my weight cut, and then Coach Cal over at the training lab helped me a lot too. And the two of them just helped me out tremendously. So if I had that in the beginning of my career, probably would have been a different story. But it is what it is. I garnered a lot of knowledge and wisdom from that, and so now, I tell all my guys, I'm like, hey, go up. You don't need to stay down. Don't think you need to stay down to compete well, because you don't have to, and so a lot of people say, all right, I gotta cut because, I can do really well there. I'd be the bigger guy. I'm like, no, you're gonna feel weak. You're not gonna feel good. So I think the trend now is going up and lifting and getting stronger, and not worrying about your weight. So that's the growing trend now.
Well, we saw that with DC. This is going back a few years, though, right? He was at light heavyweight for a while. And
Yeah.
goes up to heavyweight, and he's the champ.
I know, and he was my training partner for a long time at Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
I know. So
Something
it's
about
just
those Oklahoma boys.
Oh my gosh, dude. So, yeah. So if I did a different
point where you're walking around in that boot, you said you're eating a lot. How are you feeling upstairs?
Oh yeah, man. I was going through some stuff mentally. And I was thinking about, man, if I didn't accept the fight, I'd be in a lot better place. I should have, checked out my foot. All these shoulda, woulda, couldas, and that's, for me, that was my thing. Was I always thought about the past, and I was hung up on it, when I should have just moved on. And so I was sad. You know, I was like, gosh, man, I know I could beat Chris Weidman. I know I could beat that guy, you know? But, you know, and the thing about fighting, man, the highs are high, but the lows are low, you know, and it's, I mean, you can say that about everything, but I mean, it's like you versus you, and it's everybody, all eyes are on you, and it's a big thing, you know? I mean, millions and millions watching, you know, and it was, it was embarrassing, you know, pretty much, you know, for me. But, you know, it is what it is, man. You know, and I look back and I see God's sovereignty over it all, you know, because, you know, I don't know. Lord knows if I would became champion, I don't know what would have happened. But at the same time, you know, I'm blessed with a loving family. I mean, my kids are amazing and they all love God, you know, and I'm in a place where, you know, I love my life, you know, but there's things that happen in your life that shape and mold you into who you are, you know, and I believe that God allows that to happen so that you can become who he wants you to become. You know?
What is it that got you through that though? Because you're there, you can't train the way you'd like to train. I'm sure that's something that helps you mentally, being able to train.
Yeah.
And you can't do it now. And you're talking about how you had all these regrets and you're second guessing yourself, hindsight being 2020.
Yeah.
And now you've got months and months and months to sit there and think about it.
Yeah.
Where you can't go get that one back.
Yeah.
So what is it that got you through it?
Well, I mean, I was a part of this group called The Herd at the time, which is at Saddleback Church, and Kenny Luck was the men's pastor there, and that helped me out a lot. Going there and, you know, just going to church and, you know, being part of my life group and, you know, just staying grounded that way and reading the word. And, you know, in Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope." So it's like, for me, I place my faith in that position where, you know, those verses actually encouraged me and edified me and uplifted me, because, you know, I was like, God, you have it. You know, you have the plans, you know, and you know, plans to prosper me, not to harm me, to give me a future and a hope. So I'm going to lean on that. I'm going to lean on your sovereignty. And it also says in Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll make your path straight." So, you know, I was leaning on his promises. And, you know, there's over, 7,000, 8,000 promises in the Bible, you know, but for every promise, there's a premise, right? So take, for example, that verse, those verses, Proverbs 3:5-6. Says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart." This is the premise. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and then he'll make your path straight. But you got to do those three, you know? You got to trust with all your heart. Not some, not a fraction, but all. And know that he's going to come through. And then you can't lean on your own understanding, because in our alone finite mind, we can't even think, like, you know, what God has in store for us, because his thoughts are higher thoughts, his ways are higher than our ways, right? So we can't even fathom that, right? And then we in all the ways acknowledge him, and he'll make our path straight. So we got to do those three to get our path straight, right? So
is that easier said than done?
It's easier said than done. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's tough, you know, but
did you ask God questions when you're sitting there for all those months?
I was asking him why all the time. Like, why? Why? God, like, I can be the champion. I'm good enough. I mean, I'm like, Lord, I'm good. I'm good. Go. I'm good. I'm good, God, please. Let me be the champ. But let me be the champ. He didn't, in his sovereign will, he didn't allow me to be a champion. But I have amazing things. You know, like, not amazing things. I have him. And almost like MMA became my God, MMA became everything that I was like, it was my idol. It really was, because everything was about training, was about dieting, was about lifting, was about all MMA, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, wrestling, adding it all together. And I mean, I just basically like became like, I was studying it, getting my master's in it, getting my doctorate. Like, I'm like, this is, I mean, the MMA is my world, So a lot of people came to me. A lot of people liked my coaching style. And, there was a lot of guys that loved to be in the environment we created at Rain Training Center. And it was a great time. It was a really, really good time.
Did you feel pressure on you during that year to a different degree? Because number one, you're this tremendous fighter who can't really show that you're down, you're not feeling well or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then number two, when people know you as the Christian guy, right? You're Mark the Christian. They expect you to sort of be positive all the time and uplifting.
Yeah.
Did you feel any kind of pressure during that time?
I did. I mean, on the outside, I was always positive. But in the inside, when I lost, it was just killing me on the inside. And I just knew, like, there's something good that's going to come out of this. I know, but oh man, it just, the competitive nature in me, it was just hurting me, I mean, so anyone that's like competed at a high level and there's big stakes to wins and losses, they understand, I mean, it's a big thing, and I truly felt like, man, this win would be so great for my family. This win would be great for my business. This win would be great for all my, training partners and the guys I train. This would be amazing. But no, God had a different plan.
God's will, right?
It's God's will. And it's a great will, and so, I truly believe that, because I didn't win, I was able to focus on what truly mattered, my faith and my family, my friends, call it the 3 F's, but it just really, really had me focus on those things, and because those are the only things I really had, so, the times it was going so fast. It was going, I mean, yeah, sure, there was like 6 months in between or 3 months or 2 months in between fights, but it was like, it happened so fast. I mean, I can look back now. It's like, I mean, when did I retire? 2015? I mean, it's 2024 now.
Right.
It's almost a decade. That's crazy, And I mean, it's just the someone told me the days are long, but the years are short, and I could just look back and, we're having a conversation, but it's just like yesterday I had these memories,
When you look back on it, you said that you were always positive outwardly. You didn't let anybody know that you were hurting on the inside. Do you think that was the right way to do it? Or would you do it differently if you could again?
I mean, I see, that's a hard question to answer because, I mean, I don't want to openly be like, yeah, man, life sucks right now. This and that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be openly like that, but at the same time, you're going to go to people that you trust and, to say, hey, man, I'm not doing good right now. I am, I mean, look at David in the Bible. He had Jonathan, so he had an accountability partner. He was a man after God's own heart, but yet he wasn't perfect either, so, people had people to lean on, and so, I had people to lean on at that time, but, I'm not going to openly be like, with a stranger. Hey man, how you doing? Oh man, life sucks right now, man. I got knocked down in my last fight, and I got a broken foot. I'm out for 10 months, and won't be able to provide for my family in a year, and yeah, man, that's my life right now. I'm not gonna vomit on people like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
So the
I
answer
just
is yes and no.
yeah, it's yes and no, and you got to pick. You got to be selective. You can't just vomit on people. Raw. I got all these problems. You got to pick and choose the people that you trust.
You're got to be a tough guy to some degree, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, you have to. I mean, look, Jesus had the 12 guys. And he went to those guys. To talk to, and he did that. I want to be like Jesus, so I got my 12 guys too.
That'll work.
Yeah,
that'll work. So you do come back. You have a tremendous performance against Tim Boach, right?
Yeah,
and you have a stacked card of opposition against your next few fights, and you go out on a high note.
Mm-hmm.
What led up to that decision to retire at that point? Because it would seem to everybody from the outside looking in, this guy's got plenty left in the tank.
Yeah, I did have a lot left in the tank, and I was knocking on the door to become a world champ. I was ranked in the top 3 in the world, and knocking on the door. But I mean, that was a time where I was in the sport for 9 years, and owned my own gym and training all these guys, traveling everywhere around the world, and not being home. My wife felt like a single parent. I had, at the time, my daughter was, I believe, 13, my oldest one. She was 13, and then my son was, 11, 12-ish around, and had two little ones, like 8 and 6. So it was like time was just flying by, and I wasn't around. I was gone a lot, and I just saw my wife just struggling, to keep her head above the water, and I just sat back and I'm like, wow, my wife she's killing it, but she's having a really hard time. And then we talked about retirement, and I'm like, I'm knocking on the door, and, I could be a world champ right now, and I think this would be great for our family. And so, I just thought about that a lot, and then we had a lot of conversations about, hey, you need to be present, you need to be here. And, but I was talking to my management. I was like, hey, you need to go to this place, you need to go to that place, and you need to train this guy, you need to be here at Rain, and you need to just do all these things, right? And I'm like, gosh, man, I'm so busy. And then my son comes up to me. He was 12, and he goes, Dad, I want to wrestle, and I want you to coach me. And I go, but I don't know if I could do that. In my mind, I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. And he goes, Dad, you're busy. You're gone a lot, but I want you to coach me. I want to wrestle. And I'm like, I'm done. That's it.
That was it.
That was it. And I was like, I'm done. And that's when I just announced my retirement. I'm like, it's over. I'm gonna focus on my family, And it was just like God was slapping me in the face. He's like, hey, what are you doing? You're chasing after this dream, and you're chasing after this, but you're neglecting me. You're neglecting your family. You're neglecting everything that I care about for you. And it was that time where it was a straw that broke the camel's back and brought me back to realization. I was like, okay, I'm done. And so that's when I hung it up. I hung it up in 2015, May. I think May 15th, 2015 was my last fight.
Is that in the Philippines?
It was in the Philippines.
That's special, right?
Oh, it was very special. And so, you know, my whole family was out there. I think 6 generations of my family is back there in the Philippines. 6 generations, dude.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? It's nuts.
That is nuts.
Yeah. So,
It seems like it was an easy decision for you, because you would think that knocking on the door like you're talking about and having plenty left in the tank, that even if you feel like God's calling you to do this, it would be a very difficult thing to do. But the way you describe it, that was it. God slapped me in the face. It wasn't difficult at all.
No, it wasn't. I mean, it was just like, I'm done. You know what I mean? And you know, it's about obedience too. And I for a long time, I was like not wanting to be obedient. I mean, I'm like, no, I'm gonna be a world champ. I'm gonna be a world champ. I'm there. I see the finish line. You know, I want to be a world champ and defend it a few more times. You know, like I can be this guy. You know, and then when my son came up to me and my wife and I were talking about it beforehand, you know, probably like a week or two beforehand, I was like, yeah, I'm done. It was just like God saying, you're done, you know? And I was just like, okay, I'm done, you know? So that was it.
Was there any point after you laid the gloves down in the octagon that you thought about going back or had any second thoughts?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I did. But I knew that it was time. It was time, you know? I mean, I still feel like I can fight the best guys. Really? Me being this big too. I'm like, I'll still fight the best guys. I mean, that's just who I am. I'm a competitor at heart, you know? I feel I got the heart of David as well, you know? David was the same way. He was 13 years old slaying giants, you know? So it's just like, shoot, if David could do that, I come in God's name, you know? I come in Jesus' name, you know? So, but yeah, you know, I do think about it, but at the same time, I know I made the right decision. I know, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I just, that was what I needed to do at the time.
Would you consider yourself a natural born fighter? Because you're not somebody who was getting into fights growing up or anything, right?
No. You know, I actually grew up in Vallejo, California. That's Northern California, the north, San Francisco Bay Area, you know. So I grew up there, and Vallejo's not necessarily like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood or anything, you know. I mean, it's a lot of rough neighborhoods there. And I grew up right next to a bad neighborhood called The Crest. And, you know, you hear sirens, you know, you see people hanging out on corners all the time, and Lord knows what they were doing, you know, but at the same time, you know, I'd see people get jumped like by 5 or 6 people, like beating them up, and I'm like, man, that'll never happen to me. I'm not going to find myself doing that, you know. So, and then one day during school, I actually got jumped, you know. Yeah, by 6 guys, you know. A guy pushed me and I ran after him, and I go through these double doors, and, you know, 6, 7 people just jump on top of me, start punching me and kicking me, you know. And so it's just like, wow, you know, never thought something would ever happen to me like that, you know, but it does, you know. And I always say, and I said it before, that your life experiences shape and mold you into who you are and who you become, you know, but even more so is your life choices. What you choose to do in your life shapes you even more, right? So when that happened, you know, a good friend of mine came up to me and goes, hey, you should wrestle, you know. And I go, okay, like, let's go, you know. And I, you know, I was thinking about it before. Actually, no, sorry. I was wrestling, and then this happened during the year, and this solidified my decision. Like, yes, I need to fight. You know, I mean, I need to wrestle because, you know, and this is going to help me protect myself. You know, and so I went and asked my dad. And I said, Dad, can I wrestle? And he goes, yeah, you're going to wrestle, but you're going to wrestle the first day and last day and every day in between. You're not going to quit. After the year's done, then if you want to stop, then we can think about it. I go, okay. I wrestled the first day and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It was tough.
Exhausting.
Man. Oh my gosh. It was like we were drilling for like, it seemed like an hour, the double leg. And I'm like, oh, sweet. This is like what James did to me. I want to do this back to him, or, like, this is awesome, because we wrestled a little bit and that's what James was doing to me. So I was like, okay, now I know how to double leg. And then, we were drilling, and then all of a sudden coach goes, all right, guys, it's time to go live. I'm like, what do you mean? I am alive. What does that mean? And I was 13 at the time. And then my partner goes, hey, no. That means he's going to put us in a position. And then when he blows the whistle, that means we go 100%. I go, oh, okay. So he was teaching the double leg, and then he put us in the double leg. But I remember thinking in my mind, I'm like, wait, he never taught us the defense to the double leg, so how do I defend this?
Oh, no. And
so he picked me up, slammed me, and started like cross-facing me. I ended up getting a bloody lip, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It's not my cup of tea, So then the very next day, instead of going to practice, I went home. And I saw my dad's car. I'm like, what's my dad's car doing here? He's not supposed to be home. He's supposed to be home at like 5:30. It's like 3 o'clock, I'm like, that's weird. So I go in, he goes, Mark, what are you doing? There's wrestling practice. I go, oh, Dad, I don't want to wrestle anymore. He goes, what? No. Took me by the arm, threw me in the car, drove me to the school, presented me in front of the coach. Hey, Coach Minnie, Mark Munoz is here. See you later. I'm like, no, Dad, you don't understand. And then he walks out, and then Coach Minnie goes, hey, what's up? I go, I don't know, Coach. I don't think wrestling's for me. He goes, oh, yeah. Come and drill with this guy. So he didn't give me a choice either. So, by the end of that year, I was starting going with all the better guys in the room. So it was a process, right? So I wasn't overnight going to be good. I had to go through that sucky time where you had to learn a lot and get beat up. And that's what it was happening for me. And I just, during that time, like, okay, I can't quit, so I might as well try to get better, And so through that whole year, I ended up getting better and started going with all the seniors in that, who made it to like, who made it to like masters or like, tournaments that end up going to state. Like, they made it that far. I'm like, man, I can beat these guys. I can do what they do, And so stuck with it, and then ended up becoming a 2-time state champion, by the end of my college career, my high school career. And I'm getting a full ride scholarship to Oklahoma State, so, and then in the summer I ended up, wrestling at the junior nationals and doing really well there. And I made a world team. I made a couple world teams, and I ended up taking second in the junior worlds. And I ended up doing pretty good, so, that ended up getting me out of Vallejo and, ended up helping me, go to a step where I was able to, get a free education and compete in the sport that I love.
Do you think that highlights the importance of having an involved father figure in the home? Because if you don't have a father in that situation, you probably never continue with wrestling, do you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%. I think it's very important. I think it's very important for, a male figure to be, a father figure to be there, and, I know there's some that don't have fathers, but, there's mentors and other people that can, step into that role, and you could, have conversations with them and there's always, somebody that you can look to that's going to give you some great advice, and so for me it was super important to have that father figure there.
Do you find yourself doing that today?
Oh yeah, I try to do my best. There's times where where as a father, like you definitely have to be around. You have to be around. You have to be with your kids, and there's conversations that need to be had, with them, and you can't just be a friend, but you got to be a father.
Uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, you have to, and those are the times where I believe that your children will grow, and so yeah, I mean, fathers are really important, man. Mothers are too, and we both have our roles,
And you grew up in a 2-parent household?
I did.
Tell us a little bit about Dad. What was he like?
So, my family, they're immigrants, that came to the United States. My dad joined the military, the Navy in the Philippines. So he was able to come to the United States through that. My mom's dad, so my grandfather, ended up doing the same thing. He ended up becoming U.S. Navy, and so he ended up summoning his family over, and they end up residing in San Francisco. And my dad was there too, and saw my mom, and rest is history. But so we ended up settling in Vallejo, California. My dad retired from the Navy, and we settled in Vallejo, California. And for me, my culture is super important to me. I am Filipino, and my parents were Filipino immigrants, but of course they're American citizens now, and have been for a very long time. But for me to be a Filipino American is like, it's just the best of both worlds. I have a great. I grew up in a great culture. I grew up, just with loving parents that taught me well, and super grateful for them. My dad's 84 now, and my mom is. How old is my mom? She's like 70.
She's 40. She's 40, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, she's 40. She's 40 for sure. She's 40. But yeah, she's they're doing well. They're still in the same house we grew up in, and I mean, yeah, man, I just love my parents, man. I'm so grateful for them, and so grateful for just being the parents that they are, and showing me what it really takes to become, a great human being, a great man.
God bless them, by the way. Are there any specific values that you recall them instilling in you from an early age that stand out?
Yeah, I mean, one would be my dad saying, you need to finish what you start, Also, the, respect and honoring one another. I remember as a kid, I would always hear my parents like bicker, and, they would argue, and I'd hear that, but they never, ever in front of us disrespected one another. Never did. I don't remember, but I don't remember them ever doing that, but they were always respectful, and they were always honoring one another. And that's what I remember. But my dad was very stern. He was very what he said is what he did. My mom was very caring. She was very nurturing, very, if you needed something, she would be there. She would take the shirt off her own back and give it to you. Like, she was just a loving type of person. And so, those values are instilled in me, and I still think about them till this day. My mom, I would bring friends over, and my mom would instantly make food, like right away. She's like, "Oh, you got friends over? Okay, yeah, here, let me make this. Let me make." I mean, she's like cooking like, you know, a 5-course meal, like a 4-course meal, whatever you call it. But she would just cook all this food, and my kids, I mean, not my kids, my friends would be like, "Oh, I'm so full. Thank you, Auntie. Thank you for cooking for us," you know. And so that's another thing about the Filipino culture. Even if you're not related, you still call the older person an auntie or uncle. You know, it's kind of like the Hawaiian culture, right? But yeah, it's just you know, my mom would do that, and just her kindness has just been unreal, you know. So yeah, so a lot of good values have been instilled in me from my parents. You know, I mean, it's you know, I had a, you know, still living a great life, you know, with them.
Did you go to them when you got jumped?
No, because I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody. I pretty much held it in and didn't want to tell anybody about it. So my dad didn't know. That's why he was like, "No, you're going back. You're gonna wrestle. You know, I don't care." You know, I'm like, "Dad, you don't understand. Like, this is how I felt when I got jumped." But I didn't want to tell him that, you know, because I was getting beat up bad, you know. But he's like, "No, you're not cool."
This is repeatedly that you were beat up?
No. This is when I was at wrestling practice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. I only got jumped twice, you know, and you know, last time was
Only twice.
twice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was pretty bad, but it taught me a lot, man. You know, it taught me a lot, and you know, I mean, it brought me to a point where I was just like, you know what, I got to protect myself. You know, I really do. So, and then I got to learn how to wrestle, and so I wrestled, and you know, the rest is history. End up, you know, getting a full ride scholarship to Oklahoma State, and then, oh, I didn't tell you this story. I get a full ride scholarship to Oklahoma State. Coached there for 3 years after I was done, and then I get a phone call by somebody by the name of Lenny Zaleski, who wrestled at the University of Iowa, who is our big time rival at Oklahoma State. And then he goes, "Hey, I heard you want to move back to California." And I go, kinda. And he goes, "Well, I got a job for you. You know, I'm coaching here at UC Davis, and I would love for you to, you know, be an associate head coach." I go, "Okay." So we get to go back to California, and I told my wife, I said, "Hey, babe, like, you know, we can go back to California, and, you know, what do you think?" She goes, "Okay." So,
And you have kids at this point?
yeah, I have 2 kids. So I'm my oldest, and then my son. So, and then we end up having 2 more kids in Sacramento, or Elk Grove, with Aaron and Elise, who came when we lived there.
Did you like it in Oklahoma?
And you know, I did. At first I didn't, because when I first got there, you know, I mean, of course I was on a recruiting trip, and on your recruiting trip, they just make it like so attractive. You know, I mean, it's like they take you to the best restaurants, they take you to, like, you know, college events, and you're having a meeting with everybody, and it was a lot of fun. And but when I stepped foot in Oklahoma, and I get off the plane, I see this guy with cowboy boots, tight Wrangler jeans, a big belt buckle, a flannel shirt, and that cowboy hat. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, man, that's a real cowboy.
What airport?
It's Will Rogers, so it's Oklahoma City,
yeah.
Oklahoma City Airport. And he's standing there, and I'm like, and he has my name, Munoz, on a three like a college rule paper, you know. And like,
Whatever he could find.
yeah, whatever you can find. He said Munoz. I was like, okay. And I goes, "I'm Munoz." And he goes, "Huh?" and he like turned around. He's got a big old bump on his cheek, and he's spitting in his, Coke bottle, and he's like spitting in it, and big old like, I mean, it's like almost full of like chewing tobacco, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I've never seen that before. I've never seen anybody
Really?
chew before.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where I'm from, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. What is he doing? And so he's spitting in this bottle. He goes, hey, you're Munoz, huh? I go, yeah, I'm Munoz. He goes, Munoz. And he's looking me up and down. He goes, huh, you mind me asking, Munoz, are you some type of Mexican? And I go, some type of Mexican? What? Like, I thought there was only one type, And he goes, well, I'm fixing it. And I go, no. I go, no, sir, I'm Filipino. He goes, huh? He's spitting in his ball. You Filipino? I'm like, oh, Filipino mixed with a jalapeno now? Like, what the heck? I'm like, no, I'm Filipino, sir. He goes, huh? Okay, well, anyways, I'm fixing to take you to Stillwater. You're going to meet John Smith and this and that. And I'm like, oh, my God.
That's not a short ride either from Oklahoma City to Stillwater.
No, it's an hour. Yeah, so I'm like, damn, I'm being in this truck with him, So, anyways, no, he was great though. I mean, he was our equipment manager at the time, and yeah, he ended up being awesome, So that was Terry Morris, and Terry Morris, I don't know what he's up to now, but I mean, he was amazing, to us, So, yeah, so that was my first experience.
A little bit of culture shock.
Yeah, it was a big culture shock, and so I was like, oh man, I'm like, he didn't even know what a Filipino was.
Right.
So
yeah, they don't know what Italians are out in Oklahoma either.
Right.
They got out Oklahoma Baptist to play baseball from Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, I felt like everybody was trying to rob me because they were so polite. Somebody comes over to you and they start talking to you.
Yeah.
I start back up looking at their hands because I think they're trying to rob me. They don't do that in New York.
Yeah.
Did you have that similar experience out there?
I did. They were super nice, just talking to me. Even in the grocery stores, they would stop you and like talk to you out there because they were just being nice. And I was like, this is kind of weird. This is weird. Like, people don't do this where I'm from, Yeah, so I did feel kind of like that because, like, everybody was so nice. It was just like, is this just how people are around here? Like, this is kind of weird, because in California, we don't do this. In California, we go to the grocery store to get our groceries, and then we're out. We don't sit there in the aisle and talk to one another. We don't do that.
I was talking to a judge out in Pennsylvania who went to Tulsa, and he's originally from the Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
And he said when he got out to Tulsa law, he found some deli, like a bagel store, and he went in there, and they were so nice that he started telling people around town, you wouldn't believe it, I met the nicest people in the world at the bagel store, not realizing that's just the way everybody is out there.
Yeah,
There
man.
weren't anything special.
It's awesome, man. And like, I remember being on the team, and they're like, hey, why don't you come over, because we had to stay there during Thanksgiving. You're not having a Thanksgiving dinner, so hey, come on over. And I mean, we end up having like 4 Thanksgiving dinners.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
And they'll shoot their own turkey out there.
Oh, they'll shoot their own turkey. They would.
It's something different.
I remember shooting my own turkey too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so they end up cooking it and all that stuff. So
You don't get to do that in Vallejo.
no. I didn't even know what hunting was, man. I'm
Right.
like, what, you hunt? Oh, what is that? I don't even know what it was, But yeah, I mean, it was a great experience.
How long were you out there?
I was there for 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. I coached there after I was done. 3 years after I was done. I coached there for 3 years, and then getting that job at UC Davis. So to finish that story now.
I led you off the track. I want to talk Oklahoma for a little bit.
Yeah, that's all right.
The
So
old days.
I end up meeting. So I end up getting a job by Lenny Zaleski, and then and then on the coaching staff was a guy by the name of Uriah Faber. Yeah, so Uriah, the California Kid Faber, UFC Hall of Famer, and just an all-around amazing guy. And he goes, hey, Munoz, man, what's up? I go, what's up, man? He goes, hey, I'm getting into this sport called MMA. I'm like, what is MMA? He goes, you ever seen guys fighting in the cage? I go, dude, that's crazy. That's nuts. He goes, yeah, I'm doing that. I'm gonna do it. And they're paying me $500. I go, really? $500? He goes, yeah. So he ended up fighting and he knocked the guy out in 30 seconds. He goes, man, I made $500 in 30 seconds. I go, that's crazy. And he goes, you should think about getting into it. I'm like, nah, man, I'm good, man. I'm teaching, coaching, getting my master's. I got a wife and 3 kids, one on the way. I'm like, dude, there's no way. And he kept doing it. And he's like, hey, man, why don't you come out and train at my gym? And so I would train at his gym, and then I end up like liking it, and ended up doing striking, and then ended up doing jiu-jitsu, and then he that was probably about 3 months, and then Randy Couture was coming out. He had touched base with Uriah, and Uriah and him said, hey, you can do your camp out here. We have a lot of good guys for you out here. And so Randy came out, and he brought out like the who's who of the UFC at the time. So it was Randy, Tito, Ortiz, Frank Drake, Scott Smith, James Irvin. Who else was there? There was, well, anyways, just those names. Right
you need anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, just those names, and your eyes like, hey, yeah, we're gonna work out at this place, and you should come and come work out. I'm like, dude, those guys are monsters, man. And so I'm in there, and we're shadow boxing, and then your eyes like, all right, guys, get a partner. I mean, we did some drilling and stuff, and he goes, all right, guys, get a partner. We're gonna start sparring. I'm like, oh, dude, like, these guys are monsters, man. Like, I don't know if I want to do this, right? And then everyone gets a partner except for Randy. and I didn't have a partner. So I'm like, oh, shoot. So I'm like, okay, I got Randy. So anyways, Uriah is like coaching me on the side, and he's telling me to jab, and I'm jabbing him. And I'm like whipping his head back. I'm like, wow. Like, I'm just jabbing him. Like, this is crazy. And then I'm jabbing him, and then I jab him probably about 5 times, and then he ended up like picking up the intensity, starts grabbing me, and then I'm like pushing him away, and I start underhooking him. He foot sweeps me. I grab a single leg. It was like a scramble fest, and I end up being on top, and then Uriah's like, ground and pound. I'm like, what? Ground and pound? Okay. So I'm like raining punches from the heavens, like,
oh,
boom,
no.
boom, boom, right? And throwing them Donkey Kongers, right? So, and Randy goes, hey, I got a fight coming up in 2 weeks, man. I can't afford to get knocked out. I'm like, he goes, 20% on the punches, 100 on the grappling. I'm like, oh, my bad. I didn't know. I mean, I just started. He goes, it's all right, just go. I'm like, okay. So I'm going and just like pulling punches, and I think he was upset or mad because when we got up to our feet, he just like started welling on me. I'm like, oh shit, Anyways, at the end, yeah. Anyways, at the end, he was like, hey man, you really need to consider doing mixed martial arts, man. You're good. And I go, really? And then Uriah comes around, smacks me in the chest. He goes, see, I told you, dude. I'm like, oh, okay. So I decided to do it. I asked my wife, I said, hey, babe, what do you think of me doing like mixed martial arts? She's like, what is that? I go to like UFC. She goes, huh? She goes, well, I mean, okay, if you're asking me to support you, I'll support you, but don't think I'm going to go to your fights. I go, okay, so.
It's fair.
Yeah, it's fair, so I was like, okay. So I ended up doing it, and she ended up going to one of my fights, so, like it was like, it was a fight that I won, but she was like, I don't know if I can come back anymore.
This is WEC?
This was WEC, yeah. Like my WEC fight in Sacramento. It was like one of the big ones. Yeah. So I was fighting this guy, like big old tall guy. His name was what was his name? He was called the Reverend, but dang, I forgot his name. Oh my gosh, that's gonna kill me.
Now I'm embarrassed because
Yeah, I forgot his name, but I did get hit in the head for a living, so forgive me.
I've got no excuse to not remember for you. Did you have any stand-up experience when you get in there with Randy?
No,
None
I
whatsoever.
mean, no. I was training for like 2 months.
Okay.
Like Muay Thai. I was over at Fairtex with.
But not to get in there with Randy.
No, not at all.
You said he had a fight coming up in a few weeks. Do you know which one?
Tim
it was?
Sylvia. It was Tim Sylvia.
Okay, so this has got to be like early 2007.
Yeah,
Yeah. Where he came back and just dominated Tim Sylvia.
Dominated
Just
him.
pushed him up against the cage.
Yep. Dominated him.
And he was 42, 43 years old at that time, right?
He was. Yeah. I mean, he was, dude. He was, I wouldn't say in his prime, but like, you know.
And world champion.
He was world champ. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'm going against him. Like, oh, dang it. Like.
So 2 weeks after that, and you're hanging with him, he's decisively the world heavyweight champion.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable when you look back on it, isn't it?
No, it is. And that's why you're right. I was like, see, I told you, man, you'd be good at this. And then.
How did you decide on 185?
So I fought at 205 at the WC, right? I fought at 205 at, my regional fights, right? So the PFC, I fought at 205. And then King of the Cage, I did one King of the Cage and I fought 205. And then I got a call to go to the WC. I fought 205 at the WC, right? And then my first fight was against Matt Hamill in the UFC. And so I was like, oh man, he's a wrestler, dude. I'm gonna do good against him, right? And we're at weigh-ins. I'm like, dude's like 6'3", like 75-inch reach, and I'm only 68-inch reach. I'm like, dude is like way bigger than me, So I was like, I'll still beat him, And because I thought he was gonna wrestle me, but he ended up kicking me in the head, so I was like, oh, dang, anyways, I mean, I did have a, before that fight, in training, I did get knocked out in training by knee, and I was like thinking about not fighting, but I'm like, this is my debut, I gotta fight.
Who did it? Do you remember?
I believe it was Scott Smith.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm like, dang it. Like, and he's like, so apologetic. He's like, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to do that. I'm like, it's all right, man. Like, we'll deal with it, But hindsight's 2020, right?
Right.
And I'm like, you don't go that hard before your fights, So, you need to like, take off those punches, but you can go 100 in the grappling, There's a time to spar hard, and there's not. And there's a time to, take it off a little bit, And so, I sparred hard all the way through, and,
Wow.
and I shouldn't have done that. But, like I said, hindsight's 2020. And went into that fight, and he ended up kicking me in the head. And, I was like, dude, this guy's big. And so I was like, I need to go 185. And that's where I stayed at 185 from there.
I want to go back a little bit because we got to all this by talking about your dad and your upbringing and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you raised in a Catholic household?
Yes, I was. And I went to CCD, which is catechism. So I ended up getting baptized Catholic. I ended up getting my first communion, getting confirmed. So I did all of that through the Catholic faith. And so religion was always, and faith was always a big thing in my house,
Are your parents still Catholic?
Yes. Yeah, they're still Catholic. And so, although I believe that, they're saved, they are, but they still, practice Catholicism, and so my mom goes to service. She's a part of a, what is it? I forgot what her group's called. I think it's like a charismatic group. oh my gosh, what is it called? Anyways, she's still part of this charismatic group at St. Basil's Church in Vallejo. And so Catholic is, a big part of the Filipino culture too.
And so when is it that you ultimately start to immerse yourself in Christianity?
So in the 8th grade, that was a big year for me. I end up, my sister was playing volleyball. Now she's a volleyball player. And so I remember having to go to volleyball practices with her because I was, she was older than me. She was driving. And I would have been home by myself. So she took me along with her, and I was the ball shagger. I was shagging the balls for people. And I ended up learning how to play volleyball. And then in the summer of my 8th grade year, there was a volleyball tournament in the summers in a volleyball league. And so my sister brought me along to this volleyball league, and it was put on by a church called Community Bible Church. So it was an outreach. In between, at the end of practices and in between games, there was 2 games that you played on Fridays. So you would play one game, and then there would be a mini message, and then you would play another game after that. So I remember in like one of those games, they were asking questions like, if you were to die tonight, are you 100% sure you're going to go to heaven? And I'm like, well, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 90%. and then they're like, you can be 100% sure if you put your faith in Jesus. I'm like, I want that. I remember thinking I want that. And then I prayed the prayer, and I'm like, I don't feel any different, and so, and then that went on till my freshman year. And I ended up getting into youth group with different people that were a part of the outreach, the volleyball outreach. They ended up bringing me out to youth group and, invited me out. I'm like, yeah, I'll go, and so I went and started hearing about, Jesus and the gospel. And I was like, wow, this is awesome, and so just remember thinking, this is everything I learned in catechism, but now this is like a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And I go, I want that, and so I ended up going to youth group, and then I ended up getting involved in the choir. Then, so I was a choir.
Say choir?
Yeah, I was a choir boy for a long time, man. The choir at my church was called Battle Cry, and we did choir tours. We went to Canada, we went to Colorado, and just sung at different churches.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's just it's not every day you see the Filipino wrecking machine singing choir on the stage.
Yeah, man. I was a choir boy, man, for 8 years. Yeah, we did. I did choreography and was singing. I actually led. I was not lead, but I was the at our Easter musical. Mm-hmm. I was the lead role. I was the Roman centurion, singing at our Easter musical.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
what was the song, like "Who Nailed the Man" or something like that?
No, I had a bunch of, like, not a bunch, but I had one. I guess, what do you call it? Like one song that I sung by myself.
Like a solo.
Yeah, solo.
Yeah.
One solo, and then the rest of them were like, with the choir.
Ensemble.
Ensemble, like choir, and then, choreography and all that stuff. But yeah, man, that's what I did, man. I was a choir boy.
That's something else.
Yeah, I was a choir boy, man. Yeah, so I'm sure there's footage out there. And I know the Rippies, Joni, and I know she probably has footage of us being in the choir. I need to get it for you.
Please do. Please do.
You need to remind me though. You need to remind because I'll forget.
I'll 100% remind you. That would be great.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the transfer over, raised Catholic, and then you have this moment. Did you go home and tell mom and dad, hey, mom and dad, guess what?
No, I didn't. I didn't tell them. They knew I was going to another church. They knew I was, but they saw a big change in me. They saw, I believe they were like, you know what, I think this is a good thing for Mark, so they allowed me to go to youth group. They allowed me to go to church. I was going to church every Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. So at Community Bible Church, I was going to church every Sunday there. And, and so, we were, at the time, at that time, my parents had a restaurant too called Rudy's, which is my dad's name. And it was in Pittsburgh. And I remember we had to drive like 30 minutes to get there, like every day. We had to cross the Benicia Bridge and head over to Pittsburgh. And it was like a commute, like 35 minute to 40-minute commute, depending on traffic.
Pittsburgh,
right?
California.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, California. Not PA. Yeah, not PA. Not the East Coast. Yeah. So we, and during that time, so my parents were busy, and so, but they were like, hey, this is a good thing for Mark, and so, that's what I did. And, I'm thankful for that church. It's still, the church is still going over there strong in Vallejo. They have a new, they built another building. They bought another building across the street from them now. And I mean, it's a building. God is blessing it.
That's interesting. I've got two of my closest friends are Catholics, and you often wonder about what the distinction is when it comes to somebody like your situation. So when you were in CCD, what was the type of thing you were learning?
So you were learning about Jesus, you learned about Jesus. You also learned about Mary. You learned about Joseph, and you learned about, Jesus' life, how he grew up. And you learned about, of course, there's like, popes, and, there's confession. You confess to a priest. And then, so, catechism was largely in part about Jesus, and so, Jesus' ministry. And, they would talk about the sacraments, the 7 sacraments, right? And how the Catholics, like, it's like the 7 sacraments is like a foundational belief that you have to like go through these 7 sacraments, so CCD was all about like learning about the faith, learning about the Catholic faith. So, but there's a lot of crossover. I believe there is, and
it's the same Bible, right?
It's the same Bible, but they have other books.
The
in
Apocrypha.
It. Yeah, and there's the Maccabees, and there's other books in there too that I'm not familiar with, but it's the same Bible. The same, all the rest. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There's Acts. There's Corinthians. It's all there. So
when you say that you believe your parents to be saved, is that they accept Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior, dying to forgive their sins? And
oh yeah.
Is that?
Oh yeah.
Is that what do you mean when you say that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it sounds like you could arrive at that place in the Catholic Church, but for you just understood the message.
Yeah.
From a different source.
I did, and I just
didn't resonate with you through the Catholic Church. You never got it. Never hit you in the head.
Never hit me in the head. It never did. And I just remember going through like services, a mass. We call it mass, and a lot of it was like memorized prayers. Like the Glory Be and Hail Mary and Our Father, and so it's like. And, I just remember them going through some readings in the Bible, but like, I was like, okay, I'm at church. Not even really listening, And I remember hearing some hymns, going through some hymnals and, singing some songs and stuff like that. So, but at the same time, like it just never, like you said, hit me over the head, But then when I went to church, over at CBC, Community Bible Church, it just, it was like, it's like a sword to the heart, like it was piercing, like, and they say, I mean, and the word says that, the Bible is like the word of God. It's like the sword of the Spirit, and so it pierced me. It was like, okay, this is what I want.
It was undeniable.
It was undeniable. It really was.
Now, since then, have you ever thought about your faith and tried to assign reason to certain things? Let's say you're having conversations with non-believers, and they ask you, why do you believe in this? Do you give that a lot of thought?
Yeah, man. I tell them, there's, I always ask them, I said, if you know what's true, how do you know that something is true? Like, how do you know that? And they say, well, I know it's true because of my personal experiences. It's happened to me. And so it's true. I go, okay. So I feel that my experiences are true as well, and so, I felt this, and I felt the Spirit. I felt a peace that came about me. I felt, I experienced this undeniable feeling, when I put my faith in Jesus. And I do have those, discussions with them, and some of them, take it in. Some of them are like, well, and they ask, other questions, and they're super kind of, hesitant, or they push you away, kind of reactions, but, after a while, for me, it's about relationship anyways, it's about relationship and building their relationship. And then if they keep asking, I'm like, I'm going to keep giving, and so, and then it starts getting exciting when you start inviting, right? So I'll be like, hey, you want to come to church with me? Hey, you want to come to this event with me? Hey, you want to come to men's Bible study with me? And so, and then they're like, okay, yeah. So, through those things, you just let the Spirit work.
And pray for them.
And pray for them. Yeah.
It's so hard when you have somebody you really care about and they're a non-believer.
Yeah.
And you just got to pray for them.
You have to.
Because you hold them down. It's not going to work.
Yeah, you can't. I can hold them down.
You can.
And be like, yo, you accept Jesus right now, bro. I'm going to beat it into you.
Do you ever get people who ask the questions about suffering, though? Like, why does God allow people to go through suffering? Though maybe it was a child or something. They say, I just can't believe in God because this stuff happens. Do you see that?
Yeah, and so a lot of people ask me, like, if God is so good, if he was the almighty God, why is there so many bad things that happen, And I say, I mean, before Adam and Eve came into this world was perfect. It was made by God, and then he decided to create Adam and Eve, and then when he told them, you have everything you want here, but you can't eat from this tree of good and evil, right? And then when they ate of the tree, that's when sin entered the world. And so because that happened, now there's suffering. Now there's diseases and poverty and all these things, because sin didn't enter the world through our choices, and so, but God is still good. God is still good through that, and so I tell him, I'm like, look, I'm deserving of death. I deserve all these things, but it's through Christ that I'm able to have this free grace and this mercy, and I have this peace that surpasses all understanding. I truly believe that it's because of Christ that I am who I am today, and you can experience the same thing, and so I do have conversations with them, and a lot of them do say, okay, I want that same thing, but some of them don't, and you just pray. You just pray for them.
Now, as Christians, we go through hard times. We go through suffering.
Yep.
Should we be welcoming suffering?
You know what? You look at all those that suffer. They have a toughness to them. They have a resilience. They have a different perspective and mentality on life, right? I believe God allows suffering to shape us, because I think it's through the suffering that God molds us into who He wants us to become. Because if everything was like easy, we wouldn't be resilient. We wouldn't be tough. We wouldn't be, resourceful. We wouldn't be a people that He wants us to be, right? So I believe He allows those things to happen. I broke my ankle. I had suffering throughout my whole life, but if it weren't for those experiences, I wouldn't be the man who I am today.
You got jumped, right? That's really set this whole thing in motion.
Yeah. So it's those things that happen that really make you into who you are. Like, I wouldn't have been able to meet my wife, if I didn't get jumped, because I wouldn't have found wrestling, and so, I thank God for the experiences that I've had in my life, because those things shape me. And now you can actually pour into people because of your experiences as well, and so, because you've gone through those experiences, now you have an insight, you have an understanding that you can rise above that adversity and become successful on the other end and become a better person because you went through that adversity. And you can actually help other people through that adversity, So there's a spirit in the flesh happening all the time, right? And so I remember when I was doing a wrestling camp in Montana, there was this poem called "The Eagle and the Wolf," and it goes like this. It goes, "There's a great battle that rages inside of me. One side of me is a soaring eagle. That eagle soars high above the mountains, but even though it dips down into the valleys, it lays its eggs on the mountaintop. And on the other side of me, there's a wolf, and that raging, howling wolf represents the worst in me. It feeds upon my downfalls, and it justifies itself with its presence in the pack. But who wins this battle? It's the one I feed," right? So there's a spirit in the flesh happening all the time, and if you shun the spirit and you listen to your flesh, if you feed the flesh, which is, desires of the flesh, is evident, right? There's jealousy, envy, there's fits of rage, there's like dissensions, factions, there's like all of those things, right? But then the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, self-control, right? So if you feed the spirit, you will be in the spirit. But if you feed the flesh, you're going to be deep in the flesh, right? So there's that battle raging inside you all the time, and so, yeah, that's the truth, man. When I see myself, giving into my flesh, oh man, I'm angry, I'm short, I'm argumentative, I'm not loving, at all, and but when I'm in the spirit, like, I'm very understanding, very peaceful, very it's like you know the difference, there's a big difference in that.
there's a certain level of toughness that's required to do that.
There is.
And people get this impression that Christians are like Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, right? That's what pops into so many people's heads.
Yeah.
When they think about a Christian, they don't think about a quote unquote tough guy.
Yeah. True.
What do you have to say about that?
They're wrong. Dude, they're so wrong. The thing is, man, it's, you know, I see the toughest people being the most loving people, you know, and God is love, right? So I see like the toughest people being, you know, in the face of adversity, calm, peaceful, because they've gone through suffering, right? But those that haven't gone through it, haven't experienced it, they're anxious. They're nervous about things, you know, and you don't have that resolve. You don't have that toughness, right? And so yeah, man, Christians are tough, man. You know, I the toughest guys I know are Christians, you know, for sure, you know, because of the faith they have. You know, they go through a lot of tough times, man. This world's not this world's not sunshine and rainbows all the time, man. You know, you go through tough times, man. And if it weren't for those tough times, man, I wouldn't be who I am today, for sure. And I believe God allows those things to happen, you know. And I've heard this said before, like, you know, that life is not what happens to you, but how you react to it, right? So it's like all these things can happen to you, but how do you see it? You know, like, what's your perspective on it, right? How are you reacting towards it? So it's like life is like, what's the saying goes? 1% of life is what happens to you, but it's 99% how you react to it, right? So it's like things are going to happen in your life, you know, but the way you react to it is a lot about, you know, the perspective you have on your life, you know, the perspective you have on life, and how you're going to get through it, right?
Sometimes it's tougher, though, to react the right way than the wrong way in these situations.
Yeah.
For example, I heard that you ran into one of the guys who jumped you later on in life. Is that true?
I did. Yeah,
what happened?
So I ran into him. I was at the grocery store, and I saw him, and he had a wife, significant other. I don't know if they were married, but he had a son too. And so I saw him in the aisle, and for some reason, it was like a tugging in my spirit saying, "You need to go up to him." I'm like, I don't want to go up to him. I don't want to go up to him.
You're like arguing with God.
Yeah, like, I don't want to go up to him, man. He's standing right there. I'm like trying to look everywhere else. I'm like, talking about obedience, right? So I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay, let's go, right? So I walk up to him, and he's like, looks at me, takes his baby, and hands him off to his significant other, and he looks at me. He goes, "What's up?" I'm like he was squaring up with me. I'm like, I put out my hand. I go, "Man, thank you." And he didn't know what to think. He was like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Man, if it weren't for what happened during the time that, you know, we got into it, I got jumped, I wouldn't be who I am today, you know." And he knows who I am, right? So this was after college, and, you know, I was, you know, I was in the paper. I was in the newspaper a lot, you know, and so he basically was like, "Oh, cool. Oh man, because he was ready to throw down, you know, he was ready to fight in the aisle."
Probably a bad idea,
at the
though,
store.
right?
Well, it would have been a bad idea for sure. But But that's that's forgiveness, man. You know, forgiveness is not for the other person, right? Forgiveness is for you, because if you harbored all that anger and that resentment, it would burn inside of you. It would affect you, you know, and you have to let that go. You know, there's that saying where it says, "Let go and let God," right?
Right.
So it's like I had to let that go, you know, because I'm actually thankful for that, because I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for that.
Now, there are times where fighting is appropriate, though, right?
Yeah, there is, you know, and you do have to fight for, things that you love too. In protecting people, you got to protect people. There's things that happen where you need to, like, protect somebody from getting injured, and so if they're getting punched and kicked, you pull them out of it. And then if you get hit, you got to push them away. You got to do whatever it takes to help, who you care about and protect them, So there's times where you have to do it. There are, and you have to be, you have to have discernment, You have to discern whether it's the right time or not,
Not talking specifically about Christians, but do you think society in general has gone soft to an extent?
I do believe that, and don't want to get political or anything, but you got to fight for your beliefs. You got to fight what you believe in. You got to fight for those things, because if you don't, those things get lost in the shuffle and everything, and so, you gotta support the people that believe the things that you believe in, and so you got to fight for those things. I really truly believe you got to fight for those things, because people get lost in the wrong things. They'll look to other things as truth when they're really not the truth. So don't want to get too political on that.
You're allowed to get political. I think we that ship has sailed when our Liberals for Trump videos from last week got millions upon millions of views.
I know, that's true.
So we could talk about all that stuff. But ultimately, just in general, we see this demonization of masculinity. They call it toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's dangerous for young men who are growing up in this generation to be suppressed in that regard?
I do. And, there's, that's what happens when you take the Bible out of school or whatever, because the separation between church and state, whatever. But it's like, biblical masculinity, is everything that Jesus was, you're tough, man. You're gonna raise your kids in the spirit and truth. You're gonna fight for those things. You're not gonna shy away from them knowing those things. You're gonna stand up for them. You're not gonna be like, oh no, like you can hang out with them because they smoke and drink. No, that's wrong. You can't do that. It's like, that's, you start doing that, you're going to get to other things like, what do you believe that's true? What do you believe that's right? And you got to go to those things, So, you got to raise them, Philippians 4:8, it says, whatever is lovely, whatever is honorable, whatever is pure, whatever is, it talks, it says you got to think about those things, so whatever starts in your mind ends up happening in your actions and behaviors, right? So you got to raise your kids in spirit and truth. You got to raise them in the word. You got to raise them with all those things, because if it's not in their hearts, they're going to drift away for sure. And they're going to do things that's of the world, for sure.
Along those same lines, has anybody ever contended to you that mixed martial arts is unchristian or something of that nature?
Oh, yeah. People are like, man, dude, how do you do that? Man, you're hurting somebody. I'm like, it's a sport. Do you think football is a sport? People get hurt in football. People get hurt, like working, just happens, and just so happens that I'm engaging in a sport that's called mixed martial arts, but I am who I am. Like, I can be who I am. And I believe that God led me to this. And I believe that I have a voice through this sport to be able to help impact people and impact them in a positive way and help them, and so I can use my talents, gifts, and abilities to build a kingdom, and so, then that's what I'm doing. So
Dario said that as long as you don't have hate in your heart towards the other person when you get in the octagon, then you're good to go.
Yeah,
would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And I never had hatred in my heart for anybody, even though like they were talking so much trash about me. Like, they're trying to do that just to get followers or whatever, just to promote,
to sell the fight.
To sell the fight. I'm like,
it works sometimes.
It works, I mean, look at Chael Sonnen and Michael Bisping.
Oh, right.
They make their living off of it,
Yeah. Bisping had your back recently, though. I don't know if you saw that.
No, Bisping. I love Bisping.
Yeah.
I love Michael Bisping. I love that guy. And he was a training partner of mine. He came to Reign because he didn't have training partners, and he came to my gym, and I mean, I love that guy. I love Chael Sonnen too. Like, I love both those guys. So they're awesome, man. They're great.
I have a hard time hearing when Bisping told Vitor there's no Jesus.
I know.
Makes my skin crawl.
I know.
Just keep praying for him, that's all.
Yeah, that's what we have to do, man.
And Uncle Chael doesn't want none of the mean streets of Beverly Hills. He talks about the mean streets of Westland, Oregon. I called him out. I told him, don't call yourself a gangster until you come see me in the mean streets of Beverly Hills.
That's right, man. That's right. Yeah.
So what have you been up to lately?
I've been coaching a lot. I have my wrestling club. It's called Reign Training Center. I mean, Reign Wrestling Club. I shut down Reign Training Center, but from there, it grew from Reign Training Center to Reign Wrestling Club. So I have that. I have my camps, which is called the West Coast Wrestling Camps, which sells out every year. But now I'm starting to do them in Northern California and other places now. I do speaking engagements. I have my anti-bullying campaign that I do around schools. I've been doing that for years now. And just recently, I haven't done it this year, but I've done it for since 2009. That's crazy. That's a long time. Yeah, so I've been doing it for a long time, and then I do speaking engagements for churches. I do that, and then I do military tours. MMA Crusaders. We go around the world doing teaching our men and women, service men and women, hand-to-hand combat.
Wow.
So we do that. I do that too, and I love all that stuff. I love where I'm at, and I'm able to. Oh, and I also made this website where it's called The Wrestling Room, where I have all wrestling techniques in MMA, in jiu-jitsu, and then in wrestling, so freestyle and folk style wrestling. And it's all the techniques that I've that have worked for me, and that I've accrued over the years of competing, and so I've I don't stream them, but I have a video library of all of those things, and then I do video breakdowns. People send in their videos, and I break them down, and I do private training, and I do that too. So yeah, I'm busy.
I was going to say, when are you sleeping?
I know, I'm busy. I'm busy. And then got my wife and one child in the house now still, and I don't know what we're going to do when she's out of the house, but it's like, I'm like, babe, we need to talk now. But no, I have a great relationship with my wife. I love my wife, and she's everything to me, man. She's so supportive, and I wouldn't be who I am without her.
She's from Oklahoma?
No, she's from Orange, in Orange County. but she played softball and got recruited to go to Oklahoma State. So
This is from California,
Yeah.
and you guys had to go all the way out to Stillwater, Oklahoma to meet
each
one
other.
another.
Exactly.
That is wild.
Yeah, right?
Can you believe that?
That's God's sovereignty, man. So he found the perfect one for me.
Did you have a lot of people in wrestling who were from different parts of the country?
Oh, yeah.
At Oklahoma State?
So I had my roommate was from Schenectady, New York.
Okay.
Yeah. He went to Niskayuna High School. His name is Pat Popolizio. He's the head coach of North Carolina State University now. He was my roommate. And then I had Josh Cruzan, who was another roommate of mine. He's from Oklahoma. Then I had a really good friend of mine that's from the New York area. His name is Mike Malaconico. His name is Mike Mal now. He does he's big into wrestling, and he's got his own podcast and all that stuff. So I met people from all around the United States, really. I mean, and around the world. There's a guy named Meme. He's from Iran and used to wrestle with us at Oklahoma State. So I mean, there's a lot of people from. I mean, let's see. I had another guy named he's from Alaska. He came to Oklahoma State, Florida.
Any other Kelly guys?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of Kelly guys there. So Eric Guerrero, Jamel Kelly, Ben Lee. There was oh man, shoot, I'm drawing a blank now. But there was a lot of guys from California that came. Ricky Palomino came. A lot of state champs came from California to Oklahoma State.
I don't think we mentioned when we were talking about Randy Couture that he's an Oklahoma State guy as well, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, he's an Oklahoma State guy. Yeah, shoot, you just think about the fighters in the UFC that came from Oklahoma State, right? Daniel Cormier, myself, Jake Rushall, Shane Roller,
Is Johnny Hendricks Oklahoma State?
Johnny Hendricks. Yeah. So I mean, think about just those 5 guys. I mean,
It's incredible.
it's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
There is something special, though, about getting a bunch of guys in the clubhouse in Oklahoma
Yeah.
from all different parts of the country, all different walks of life.
Yeah.
And you're there for a specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
You have that thing in common why you're there.
Yeah.
I remember before we went to the World Series my senior year, Coach brought us together and said, listen, you guys aren't here from California and New York and Texas to just hang out in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
This is why we came here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you miss it?
I do miss it, man. Oklahoma was an awesome time in my life. I have great friends there. We're still friends till this day, man. I mean, we have this like text chain that we have, and we update each other on what's going on in our lives, and we rag on each other too. But I mean, we still keep in touch, man. They're like some of my best friends, man. So yeah, man, it was a great time. It was a great time in my life.
We're going to see you on the big screen anytime soon.
Oh yeah.
As a movie star.
Yeah, I've done some movies. We'll see. There might be a 3rd installment of the Olympia with a Vengeance movie. So we'll see. You'll see something out there on that. But yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I mean, I was in Here Comes the Boom with Kevin James too, and so yeah. I mean, I'm out there. I'm a SAG-AFTRA member now, so it's pretty cool.
You really enjoy it?
Yeah, it's cool, man. I really enjoy it. I mean, it'd be awesome if I was on the silver screen a lot. It'd be great. My kids would be like, hey, that's my dad, so, but, yeah, so if the opportunity arises, man, I would love, definitely love to be an actor for sure.
A man of many talents. He can sing, he can act, he can wrestle.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
can smash their face.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And he
right.
could, most importantly, tell people about Jesus.
Hey, amen. Amen.
Anything else you want to add?
No, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having me on the show. It's man, it was a great time being here.
Embrace suffering like a Christian tough guy, right?
There you go, man. There you go.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.